How you doing? This is Adam McInnis here from Music Industry Contact. Usually I do reaction videos to hit songs. That's usually what I do here. But today I'm going to add something a little bit different because I happened to see a video from, it looks like, I'm hoping I'm saying his name right, Boise Watkins, who was talking about an interview he did with Kamala Harris, or something that he had pulled from something with Kamala Harris, talking about rap music and how it's affecting families and what's happening in the undertone of history right now. And I thought it was important to start putting on this channel not just breakdowns of music, but also breakdowns of discussions, because there's a lot of things happening in the current space that most people aren't looking at the subliminal and subconscious layering that's actually happening. So the same way I can do breakdowns of music, I'm going to do that with interviews, because I think it'd be important for me to pull out some of these threads for some people. Anyway, that being said, I'm going to hop right into the video. Let's check it out and let's just see what he says, and I'll give you my reaction towards it.
Right, she talked about I think she said what is it, maternal health, which I think is extremely important. I think that this country doesn't do a good enough job when it comes to supporting the rights of mothers and the importance of parenting. One of the things that you've lost in your community is you've lost your families. When they destroyed your families, they destroyed you. When they dropped them drugs and pumped that crack and started marketing that Molly through the hip hop music, they started ruining your families and destroying your community. And so Kamala mentioned the support of families, which I agree with 100%. I also wish that we would also take on some of these record labels that are making money by telling you to call each other the N-word, to rap about killing Black people, to rap about harming Black women, to rap about throwing away all your money, to rap about getting our young people addicted to drugs. These are our future. These are the people that we're going to need. And I'm going to tell you, it's hard to build anything with an 18-year-old drug addict who's half his brain is fried because some rapper done told him that it's cool to get hooked on some sort of dope that you can't come back from. That shit destroys your brain cells. They are killing your children with this nonsense, and they're mass marketing things to you and about you that they never mass market to anybody else. You show me any song out here anywhere on the radio that has ever been played in history about the killing of Chinese people. Give me a yes or no. Have you ever in your life seen a song ever about the killing of Arab people? Tell me yes or no.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. I mean, listen, he's saying a lot of really true things. And I've discussed this before with other producers that are friends of mine about the subliminal way that music is keeping people addicted in today's current atmosphere. So let's look at this. In country music, a lot of the music is about alcohol. A lot of it's about whiskey and beer, and some of the songs he talks about driving while drinking. Talks about smoking in country music. In trap music, a lot of it's about Molly and lean and different kinds of drugs and popping pills. And a lot of the times it's also putting women down in a very negative light. And the people who are doing it in reality wouldn't even have the option to do some of these things, these wild things, unless they were famous. If a normal person was walking around with the amount of drugs and attention-seeking atmosphere, if they weren't famous, you'd be like, this person's crazy. If this person showed up to your party and they had guns on them and a bunch of drugs and they were just like, yeah, girl, drop it low, people would be like, yo, your friend's a little wild. He needs to calm down a bit. So I see this a lot in the music creation, where drugs and overly degrading terms are used. Let's say right here where he's talking about, we'll call it the N-word. Just for everyone to know, I'm half Black, right? So this word to me is always very interesting, because a lot of words that are used are sometimes when people will take a negative word, and so they feel like because the word has so much power, which words are just the power we give them based on how they were used in history. But let's take a word like bitch, right? Someone will say that's a bad word. That word bitch is a bad word. But someone else will take that word and use it as something they'll consider positively powerful. So I'll see a reality show and a girl walk in, she'll be like, what's up, my bitches? And all the girls will be like, hey. So you took a word that normally is a negative and you try to change it to a positive because the word has still power in it. If you took a word like door, that doesn't have power in it. So it's not like people are going to be like, what's up, my doors? But if you have a word that's usually negative, usually towards people or a group of people or a person, that group will try to take that word and flip it to use as something positive. Okay. So I understand why people try and do that. But let me be very clear. The trying of it usually ends to more division, because then people who aren't a part of the Black community who are listening to songs are saying these words because they're repeating what they're hearing. And if they go out in public and start saying the N word or something like that, or bitch or any of those things, that could be a real serious altercation. Now, whose fault is the altercation? Is the person who's listening to the music or the person who's creating the music? And that's where we get into all these like middle ground discussions. Now, I'll say this. I feel like when a word has a negative connotation, it should just be removed. It's just that simple. And it's removed from everyone, not removed from just one party or the other party, because that's where these conversations get deeper into confusion. It should just be removed. That word, for whatever reason, has power in a negative light. So let's not give it any power by removing it, not by trying to change its power and like by just passing it off to something else and then expecting that the world will change with it. That form of working with energy doesn't manifest into what we're trying to create. If we're trying to create unity, if we're trying to create equality, if we're trying to create a better world, we should remove things that create bacteria. And certain words are like bacteria, where they kind of manifest and they hang out in like weird spaces, and then all of a sudden when they come out, they turn to diseases, they turn to something negative. My option is to remove words like that. So I don't think that people should be called any word that's negative in that light. We should remove it and we should address it as such. Now that's my saying. Now, this is very important what he's talking about when it comes to the age of people who are listening to this music and what's happening. He's like, they're ruining the youth. And that is true. Okay, your brain doesn't stop developing until age 25. So the brain is constantly building neuroplasticities and constantly growing as it learns new things. But it's highly suggestible, meaning highly suggestible up to the age of 13, where you might mimic things only because it's in front of you on TV. Not even because you want to truly be the thing. You don't know anything about what you're looking at. You're just mimicking it because people at school are doing it or you're seeing it on TV. And with the amount of hours that people spend watching TV and on their phones, it's way more information than sometimes the amount of time they spend with their family. So if you think about this, if a mother and father were raising a child, they might see that child in the morning, so 1 hour before school, and then when that person gets back from school and back from work. So maybe 3 hours a day at from 5 p.m. to 8 or 9 when they see their family. So that's only 4 hours a day they might be given information. If you look at just from information, they're given information from their family. Now look at how many hours they're in school, where they're getting information from their friends. That could be 7, 8 hours. And then they might be spending 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours on video games, on TV, getting other information that is not always in line with their best interests. And that's the part where you start to get a little dicey, because when you take that idea and you multiply it over 10 years from the age of 10 to 20, you're going to see that most people are taught information by the outside public or the media or their friends way more than their mother or father. Now, if you remove a parent in the household, let's say you remove a father, maybe a father's not around, that's even less information of how to be raised in a way of that best benefits you, right? No one else. So forget about society's thought for a second. Just best benefits you. I've seen a lot of people get addicted to drugs. That's one thing about the music industry that I wish we would really take a good hard look at. I mean, we've seen so many musicians die. In the hip hop industry, if you go look this up, I think it's like 50% of hip hop artists die from violence or from drug overdose. That's a high number. 50% of rappers, it says when they die from violence or from addiction. But I've met a lot of musicians, a lot of good friends over the years who have passed away from drug overdoses. And it's a sad thing to see someone with a lot of talent who you want to champion, you want to help them grow, but they keep on putting themselves into a self-sabotaging spiral and they can't stop it. And I've seen, like, one of my close friends, he passed away. He left 2 children behind. So his 2 children are going to be affected by his choice to do that drug and to take it so far. His kids will have to be living the rest of their life knowing that their father chose to do drugs more than take care of them. That's going to be a very tough thing that they're going to have to work through. And then hopefully they get to a point where they can work through it, because you don't want them passing that energy over to their friends and their family and their loved ones and their new spouses as they grow older. So all these things have reflection points, meaning this person does that, it will affect the people closest to them. It's important that you all know that the things that you do, a lot of people like to live in this idea of like, it's my life, it's my world, it's all about me, it's my story, it's my journey. And that sounds good when people are feeding you that idea. But if you really think about your life, you're affected by the people closest to you. You're affected by your mom, you're affected by your dad, you're affected by your brothers, from your sisters, you're affected by your friends. The only way we can come to a place of harmony, like real harmonic resonance on this planet, is when we understand and hold ourselves accountable for our energetic resonation. Like, I'm accountable for my energy, and how do I give it to you? And how do I give it to my loved ones and to my friends? I'm accountable for that. When you hold yourself accountable for that, and let's say everyone start doing that, well, then we'll start to harmonize with each other, because I'm accountable and you're accountable. And then when we disagree, we hold each other accountable, and we can start to grow on that. But when people claim this thing of, it's my journey, it's my story, it's my this, it's my that, what happens is, unfortunately, is that it creates a static, right? And it's usually a false, almost delusional static that is reinforced by the media that tells them, yes, you do it. You get what you want out of life. You go, you go, you go. And sometimes in the music industry, people have seen these videos of partying. Like, there's this idea that once you make it big in the music industry, then you're going to have drugs and sex and cars and homes and all this excess, the thought of excess. But the reality is that excess will lead you into degress. Eventually, something's going to catch up. It could be the fact that you have anxiety now and depression. It could be the fact that you're doing so many drugs that you're not focusing on your work. It might be the fact that you're an actual addict now and you're living just based off these things. People have seen the videos of Amy Winehouse. Like, look at the videos of Amy Winehouse in the recording studio. You'll see she was going through some real pain. These are things that need to be addressed in our industry, because let's say if I'm really negatively affecting myself, like I'm pouring drugs into my system, and then I'm telling other people to do it too, my one bad decision might inspire 1 million people to do the same bad decision. And if I go down doing drugs, I mean, if I overdose or do something and other people do it too, I am not helping the planet at all. I'm only living for myself. And that's a very low way of thinking about being here and being in this existence. Like, we all have this life, this one time that you're going to most likely remember cognitively. And in that time, you have the option to live a very fulfilled life if you choose to. So whenever I look at the musicians who pump negative energy into getting people into addictive states that sometimes are very hard to come back by, I don't support that music at all. Like, I understand if someone's like, oh, I have a song about smoking weed. I'm like, all right, that's not too bad. But when someone's like, hey, let's do hardcore drugs that get you addicted and you might OD and die from, that's a whole different story. And there's nothing cool about it. So whenever people are like, oh, this is so cool, we're doing so many drugs, I'm like, listen, you haven't been around drugs long enough if you think that they're that cool. Because when you're someone like me who grew up in New York, I grew up around all of it, walking to school, just so everyone understands where I came from, walking to school, they would have a teacher's assistant. That teacher's assistant's job was to step on the crack needles and the crack vials and the heroin needles that were in front of us. So we didn't see them. But of course we saw them. Of course we heard them. So after we were 7, 8 years old, we were already aware, like, okay, wherever we're living, it's not that safe if there's all this stuff around. And the only reason I'm saying this is because what he's talking about is very, very deep. Because as people turn to be, let's look at your parents, right? When your parents turn 70, who's going to take care of them? You are. So there is a thing where we go through life where when we're kids, we're being raised, then we become an adult and we take care of ourselves. And then we get to a certain age where we start taking care of our parents. If the new generation who's going to be taking care of this planet is going to be around a certain age, let's say between the age of 30 to 50, if that generation is addicts, is people who are going through traumas, if it's constantly static inside themselves and the stack they're giving to each other, if that's the people who then inherit the planet and they have this technology where they can just shoot off things on shock value and stay in depressed states because they're trying to share their depression with everyone, this misery loves company trauma trap, that world is only going to self-sabotage. So music being such a powerful device, such a powerful energy, I think it should be the same thing. Like, for instance, if I had a laboratory and in that laboratory, I charge people $50 an hour to come in and use the laboratory. But then the person told me, when I said, hey, what are you going to build in my chemistry lab? And they said, oh, I'm going to make a poison. Oh, okay. What are you going to do with that poison? Well, I'm going to put that poison into the water stream, and I'm going to make sure everyone drinks it. As many people as they possible could drink that water. As a laboratory owner, I'd be like, no, you can't do that here. But in recording studios, someone will come in and be like, I'm about to make a song. Cool. What are you making? I'm going to make a song about how you should do as many drugs as you want and like get really wasted and then maybe shoot some people and then tell women that they should always be treated like whores. That's what I'm going to do right now. And then what are you going to do after that? I'm going to put that into the radio so it goes into their minds and it turns into a mental virus. And hopefully they pass it around to some of their friends. That's the same thing as creating a laboratory that you're putting poison into the stream. The only difference is that the 1 cup of poison that person might drink might make them sick for a little bit. We're talking about a mental disease or a mental virus could last 20 years. There's people who are adults who still are trapped in their own sabotaging cycles, that some of these cycles were just reinforced by the music they listen to. So I'm just saying that in response to this video, because I think this video is really worth people mentioning, especially when it comes to the music industry, something that's not talked about enough. And if drugs were so cool, there wouldn't be so many people dying, getting addicted to them. And just give you a little insight. My mother works for rehab facilities and has for 20 years. She's like one of the top marketers. Facilities are packed. It's not like they're getting less. They're building more facilities because more people are addicted to drugs. The worst person to be around, now I'm going to keep it real, the most manipulative people I've ever met in this planet are not actors or actresses, because they're highly manipulative too, because they study how to become manipulative. Okay. It's someone who's a drug addict, because every part of their being wants the drug so bad that they will manipulate everything to get there. And so I feel like if we just remove drugs, and what's crazy is like, I look back on those videos when you think like the war on drugs and everything, and people are like, oh, this thing's crazy, the war on drugs. But I understand it. I understand it when you've seen really good people. I mean, I've seen people who are star athletes. I've seen amazing musicians. I've seen beautiful models. I've seen people who, if you didn't put drugs in front of them, would probably be in some amazing places of their life right now. But because of those drugs and because of the music and because of the people they surrounded themselves by, didn't work out that way. And they left behind a lot of pain in their families, a lot of pain in their children, a lot of pain in their friends. And it didn't have to be that way. And a lot of times drugs is a major part. If you ever get a chance, look at some videos or documentaries of people in jail. And a large majority of people in jail are people who are on drugs. So there's a direct correlation between the drugs and then the actions they do to get them. So that being said, I'm going to end it on that. If you like this video, like it, share it, and let other people know about this stuff, because there's one thing about the music industry that it's such a powerful tool, but I think we need to start to relook at what it actually does rather than saying it's just music. It doesn't harm anyone. And you're like, nah, music is stronger than people think. And downplaying it like that is kind of what's been allowing it to keep people in addictive states for this long. All right, that being said, be good to yourself, be good to others, and I'll talk to you soon. Give me some of that power.